Hello, my name is David Lindo. I'm also known as the Urban Birder. And I guess my ethos, my thing in life, my motivation, my course is to try to engage as many people as possible who live in urban areas across the world, not just the UK, but engage them with their environment, with nature ultimately, but through the medium of birds. Because in any urban environment, birds are everywhere. And it's surprising the number of people I meet or the number of people I see talking who just have no idea as to what's around them. You know, I take people around in urban areas, in their own neighborhood. I've taken for walks people who've never even lifted their eyes in the direction of a bird unless it was something they were about to trip over, like a pigeon. And without any kind of, uh, it's always been the case that they are surprised. I took people ranging from kids to adults around the neighborhoods, and some of them afterwards have contacted me and said, "Oh, I've seen this, I've seen that," and some have even gone a stage further and bought themselves binoculars and even got into the actual idea of watching birds. So it's great when you open people's eyes. There is a need for this because when you look at the world, when you look at how things are going, when you look at the fact that, for example, in America, 60% of all birds, in terms of numerically, not species, have disappeared. And when you look at Europe and Britain and think about the fact that starlings, for example, 60 million have disappeared across Europe since 30 years ago, it just shows you that we are in a dire need of thinking more about conservation and less about all these fossil fuels and our lifestyles at the moment. Because at the end of the day, you can live for today, but you may die tomorrow. And I know it sounds harsh, but that's the way it is. And we really do need to think about how we conduct our lives. But anyway, let me sort of regress slightly and tell you about how I got into this whole thing. I have been interested in natural history and nature since before I was born. And I always say that because I was born into an area of London, northwest London, which was predominantly black and Irish. And I had this innate interest in natural history, which actually started off with insects. I used to collect invertebrates and insects and keep them in a zoo on my back step outside, in my garden. One thing I learned very quickly was that if you actually have too many spiders, it leads to mass genocide. So never put too many spiders with other invertebrates. But it's one of the things that kind of got me into nature, and I realized that these invertebrates use the plants in the garden. So I used to go to my primary school and collect seeds and plant them in my garden. And after a while, I had this wild patch, which eventually started attracting birds. And at the time, I had no one around me to kind of tell me what these birds were. No idea. My mum, no one had an interest actually around me. My mum, my family, my friends, their friends, no one. So I kind of saw these birds and I had to call them as I saw them. So sparrows were baby birds, starlings, mummy birds, blackbirds, daddy birds, crows were uncle birds. It's just that. Now, let me just go back again one more time. I talked about the fact that I didn't have anyone to mentor me, yet I had this innate interest. I think this interest came from a previous life. You're going to laugh. You may laugh about this, but it's a previous life. I think that in a previous life, I was a puma. And towards the end of my life as a puma, I was chasing after birds, trying to catch them to eat. And I think that I might have missed one of them. I might have pounced and missed one, and it flew off And as you flew off, I thought, wow, that looks amazing. So I became a birding puma, and it led to my demise because I wasn't eating. I was watching my time, spending my time watching, should I say. And I must have thought to myself, I've stumbled across something quite interesting. Let's see if I can pick it up if I have another life. And luckily, I was born as a human in London. So that's, I think, where my innate interest came from. Because, as I said earlier, no one taught me anything. I had no mentor. I didn't meet another birder until I was 11, by which point I was way down the road. In fact, when I was 7, I picked up a book from the library, and I still have it. It's this one here, Birds of Britain, Europe, Middle East, and North Africa. I say I still have it. I actually did try to return it about 10 years ago, but the library was closed down. What do I do? So I thought I'd hold on to it until such times I can give it back. But it was filled with all these birds. I mean, there was like 1,000 species of birds, which I've never come across in my life. And I couldn't believe it. It was like finding the Holy Scriptures. So I read this book inside out, back to front, sideways, upside down, took it into my primary school, read it during my lessons, was called Bird Brain by my fellow pupils. But by the age of 8, I was a veritable encyclopedia in fact, a walking encyclopedia on birds of Britain, Europe, Middle East, North Africa, as well as the rest of the world. And that's where my 10,000 hours of study, if you listen to Malcolm Gladwell, came in, and that kind of became the basis of my knowledge, which I still have to this day. So anyway, to cut another long story short, because this is not about my life history really, about 15 years ago, I was, I was obviously birding, but I wasn't doing anything on a major stage. And I got invited to appear on Springwatch by the BBC. For those who don't know, Springwatch is a massive natural history program, and they have Winter Watch and Autumn Watch as well. And it's the biggest one on TV in terms of sheer audience, especially back then. So I did a piece on my local patch, which is Wormwood Scrubs, a park in West London, which is near Hammersmith, and currently being destroyed or partially destroyed by HS2, but that's another discussion to have. But anyway, I gave a talk on that. They filmed me doing that, and just before the actual filming started, I thought to myself, what can I do? What can I say that will make me stand out? Because I was quite excited about the possibility of being a presenter. At the time, I realised that, and I really liked the fact that Jamie Oliver had just started off, and he was calling himself the Naked Chef. I'm sure you remember the Naked Chef. And I thought, that's an interesting moniker. Is there something I can call myself that will make me stand out? So I thought, well, I do like wildlife and birds in cities. What about the city birder? Then I thought, no, the urban birder, that sounds all right. So the following day when we did the filming, I called myself the urban birder, and it kind of started from there. And I realized very quickly that I had a job to do, which was to talk to as many people as possible to try and get them to understand that conservation starts from your doorstep, not in the middle of the Serengeti, but from your doorstep. And if you can understand that your flower pot on your windowsill is part of that massive conservation picture, your patch of land behind your house, your local park, they're all part of an ecosystem which is connected ultimately to the Arctic, to the Antarctic, to the Congo, to the Amazon, to the Barrier Reef. It's all connected. And the problem I see is that many people walk around looking at this and not noticing anything else around them, and living in this bubble, especially in urban areas. We live in a bubble where we think that we're not part of nature. Nature is something out there that you watch on David Attenborough programs that you think is in the middle of the countryside, away from prying eyes, but not in a city. And in reality, it's all around us. And that's what I'm trying to do, is to connect people and get them to understand that there is this whole web of life which starts sometimes within your home, but certainly outside your window. And that is all connected. So I've set up a website, the Urban Birder World, on which I try to connect people with all these things, talk about various species of birds to be found in cities all over the world. I also lead tours to various places, mostly actually, in rural locations. But I always, even if I'm going to Antarctica, there's always an urban element. We always, if you land in a city, instead of shooting straight out to wherever you're going to be going, I try to have a day at least in the urban area, looking around and seeing what sort of things can be seen. And the tours themselves, I have always got a conservation story, so they're not to the most obvious places, even if it seems like an obvious country, like Spain, for example, where I am now. It's to places that people don't think of. So those are things I do on my website. And one thing I want to announce, actually, whilst I'm here, is the fact that I'm launching the Urban Birder World membership club. And the idea behind that is that I want to unite the world of urban birders and urban wildlife lovers with a membership that allows people to not only connect with each other, but also enjoy the benefits of discounts on services and products, as well as online courses. There'll be plenty of online courses available to help you appreciate nature in your urban area, ranging from the classic how to watch birds in urban areas through to photography, writing about birds in terms of, or wildlife in terms of nature writing, all that sort of stuff. So that's one of the big projects that I'm working on at the moment. I do many other things. I am also, for example, the vice president of the, or a vice president even, of the Wildfowl and Wetlands Trust. I'm an ambassador for many organisations, including the London Wildlife Trust. And I do a lot of work in communities, especially with kids, to try and engage, because it's so important to engage. And I think the other thing I'm trying to get over is the fact that this is not to try and change the view of what people have as of bird watchers or birders. I'm not the classic birder. You can look at me now. I'm not. People often look at me and think, "Are you really interested in birds, or are you just having a laugh?" So it's something that I'm trying to break that. And I've always had this thought in my head, especially when I first thought of the Urban Birder as a brand, that I want to sell the idea of love for our environment in a different way. And the way I did that to the media was to try and sell it as a lifestyle choice. Urban birding is a lifestyle choice, up there with yoga, up there with meditation, and it kind of worked, to the point that eventually some newspapers and magazines were calling urban birding the new rock and roll of ornithology. So it's great. And the idea is simple. It's the fact that you don't need to be an expert to watch birds, especially in urban areas. In fact, you don't need to know anything. There's no exam to take. You don't have to have seen X amount of species in 1 month, or know all the names of whatever by tomorrow. None of that. You can take it as far or not as far as you want. So if you want to just look out your back window and just enjoy birds and not even worry about what they are, that's amazing. If you want to be the next major ornithologist ever to walk this earth, that's amazing too. And you can be doing anything in between. It's not about that. It's about being connected to nature. It's so important, especially in our urban lives, to spare that time to connect to nature. It's well known now that it's all very good for your mental health, and also well-being, but it makes you feel great. I mean, just spending 10 minutes or half an hour a day going to your local park and sitting down, or if you have a garden, sit in your garden and just allow yourself to blot out the sounds, the background hubbub of humanity, people shouting after their dogs, car alarms going off, police sirens, blot it out. And eventually you start connecting with nature. You start hearing things that you've never heard before. You hear the goldfinch over the end of the traffic. You look up and you see the sky, which is an amazing arena, by the way. It's a fantastic arena because when you look up, you start seeing where there's life in the sky, things are flying across. And then you begin to feel like you're in a totally different world and you're connected to something else. And then 15 minutes later, you can then walk off and carry on your life, but you have an enrichment in your life, as far as I'm concerned. So it's a beautiful thing to get involved with, really, watching birds. It's very calming, and it also allows you to realize just how wonderful this world is and how we need to protect it and how that protection starts from your doorstep. So that, in a nutshell, is the work I do. That is what I'm about. As I said, you can find me on my website, theurbanbirderworld.com, and you can also find some stuff I do online as well. I'm on Twitter, I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram, so you can find me quite easily. And please get in touch with me and consider becoming a member of my club. The bronze level, the entry level is actually free, and it's going to be launched in May. So I look forward to welcoming you to my club and into the urban birder world.